Hey, it's Chris. What have I been doing? I've been so busy talking about all the new iPad updates, Mac updates. I haven't even touched on the iOS 17 updates yet. So today, I want to give you my thoughts and reaction to what I think is the coolest feature coming to iOS 17. Now, we got a lot of interesting updates. We got live voicemail for screening people. We got contact posters for customizing how people see you when you call. There's interactive widgets, which are gonna make them so much more useful. Some really nice AirDrop improvements, including that new sharing animation, which people can't get enough of. But far and away, in my opinion, the coolest new iOS 17 feature and the most useful is going to be standby mode. This is the feature that lets you turn your iPhone into a customizable smart display when you're charging it, either with MagSafe or you can plug it in. It's gonna give you widget stacks you can swipe up and down on to change the widgets. You can get smart recommendations, which I always turn off because I hate it when it recommends. I just wanna pick my own thing. You can swipe left and right to change screens, so if you don't want widgets and you just wanna show your photos, you can do that. But I don't wanna just talk about the fact that it exists, that we have standby mode. I wanna go deeper. I wanna talk about what it means, where it's gonna be so useful, why we're going to enjoy it so much. And then at the end, I do wanna talk about what some of the best standby mode stands are gonna end up being, give you my recommendations. There's a lot of Apple haters out there, and there's also a lot of Samsung fans or Android fans, which are not necessarily the same people, just to be clear, that are quick to point out that Samsung's had a similar feature for a while now. And I just have to say, what's the point of even saying that or talking about it? Because as an iPhone user, I could care less. I have an iPhone, right? And this is gonna make it so much more useful. That's why I'm super excited about it. And I can say this, I'm positive that I prefer Apple's design choices over the Samsung UI. Now, obviously, the main use cases here are gonna be on your nightstand. You're gonna be able to glance that information as you're going to bed, as you're waking up, starting your day. That's cool. Some people are gonna use this in the kitchen with timers and stuff. But the biggest, coolest, juiciest, most exciting scenario for me, and I think for a lot of people out there, is the desk setups that are gonna happen and change because of standby mode. For instance, let me just describe my current desk setup. I've got a studio display and I've got a Mac Studio set up, and in front of that, I've got a keyboard with a mouse that's resting on a desk mat that over on the side has a section to wirelessly charge my iPhone and AirPods. So right over there to the left is where I place and charge my phone when I'm at my desk, when I'm getting some work done. But that's gonna change because standby mode is gonna be so useful, and I'll explain exactly how in just a second, that I can't just afford to have my phone sitting there collecting dust as it charges. I'm gonna wanna have it front and center so that I can glance at and interact with all of this information. Now, at first glance, somebody's gonna be like, well, this is basically just putting widgets on your iPhone, throwing in some live updates. What really is the big deal? Because you talked about your Mac setup, Chris. Well, on the Mac, we're getting really cool new widget updates as well. You can drag your widgets out and place them anywhere on your home screen. And I'm not gonna go all into that because I just covered that in the last video. And my answer is, yeah, that's all really cool and exciting, but usually for me when I'm using my Mac, I don't have just a small centered window and I can see all the widgets around it. Sometimes, but usually I've got 1 or 2 or 3 full screen apps taking up all the space. So now even if widgets on the Mac aren't living in the sidebar and they're more visible and interactive, it doesn't really matter if I've got some windows on top of them. The same thing goes for people using an iPad. When you have some windows open, that all goes away. So the magic for somebody like me in my desk setup and the way that I use my stuff is I'm gonna have my studio display with full screen apps going, being very productive. And right underneath that, I'm gonna have the iPhone in standby mode with my widgets always available, never hidden. So just practically speaking, it's gonna be nice to see all of those widgets, all that information, my calendar, reminders, what time it is, sitting there in front of me, never obstructed, while as a bonus, my phone is getting some juice. But the fun doesn't stop there, not even close. You add in things like live activities. So just to be able to see a live timer going, you know, your food updates with Uber Eats. You've got Siri interactivity. You've got a better way to handle messages as they come in. A better way to handle calls when those come in. Having that sort of information pop in over your widgets as opposed to say, getting an alert on your Apple Watch or maybe seeing a notification in the top right corner of your Mac screen, that is going to be cool because I think there's a really great chance as people start to use this that they realize that is the best way in standby mode to interact with all these different elements. Not just an option, a way, but the best way at your desk setup. And I think, and I could be wrong, and we'll check in on this in 6 months or a year, that people are going to end up being like, how did I ever live without that? And then when you just think about, well, this also lets me personalize my setup that much more than I could before, that's great. Just the photo thing alone, being able to display those constantly like a photo frame, you know, that's really cool. Adds some spice to your desk setup. In the old days, people had a photo frame, with one photo, a real printed photo. Now you can have an infinite amount of photos going, and it's just your phone. So with standby mode, I'm mostly looking forward to the productivity enhancements, the quality of life enhancements at my desk while I'm working. I can imagine using the Pomodoro technique with this. You've got the timer going, and you've also got your list of items that you need to handle, and it's always available. It's not covered up behind anything. It's not living in your Mac's menu bar, obscure, out of the way. It's gonna keep you focused better, being more efficient, being more productive, staying more motivated. It's gonna be great with standby mode. By the way, if you haven't signed up for Learning to Be Productive, my productivity course is gonna help you get more done with less burnout in the Apple ecosystem, check it out. It's linked up down below. Now, the fact that the iPhone now turns into a legit desk setup accessory, not just something that kind of clutters up while it's charging, but something that you actually want to incorporate and will be at your best by incorporating at your desk. All of that stuff aside, I'm still excited for this as a nightstand mode, obviously, and for other use cases as well. It's gonna be very interesting to live with this day in and day out, week in and week out for a long time, like get used to having this as your alarm. As people have been playing around with the beta and they've discovered the nighttime mode where everything shifts red, so you're not getting that blue light hitting you at that critical time before you go to sleep, it's apparent that Apple has really put some serious thought into how this is gonna integrate into, in particular, your nightstand. I do see all the complaints where people are like, I wish that this wasn't just gonna be a horizontal mode kind of thing, because some people would rather have the widgets displaying in vertical mode. That seems like it could be a fairly straightforward update that Apple could bring, but also maybe not. Apple just wants things to work, and the idea here is hook it up to charge, turn it sideways, and it just turns on. That's all the thinking you have to do. But the bigger question that's hitting me in the back of my head is, well, is this gonna end up coming to the iPad? Can you imagine this running on like an iPad mini as your nightstand? I think that would be even cooler to have that going on. But then there are some other questions too that we're just gonna have to deal with as people start to integrate this, like how is this going to affect your iPhone's overall battery health in the long term? Now, obviously, I'm sure that when Apple implements this, they're doing it in the most low impact way that they possibly can. So managing the power consumption and maybe not charging things up to 100% until it absolutely has to. Apple knows how to get the most out of the battery, but still long-term usage. That's something that everyone's gonna be curious about. Now, let's talk a little bit about what stands you might wanna use with this. This isn't as straightforward as you think, because you look at something like the 12 South Forte, which looks good, but then you see that when you turn your iPhone horizontally, you're gonna end up seeing part of that MagSafe cord from the puck sticking down below the screen. And that's kind of an eyesore. It's not gonna look good. So if you want my opinion, there's two that really appeal to me. A lot of this is subjective, but I'll explain why I'm excited about these two in particular. The first is this Belkin wireless charger that looks kind of like a black version of Apple's MagSafe, but a little thicker because it has a built-in kickstand. And if you just want something that's super minimal and you don't want it to be raised off the desk, like maybe you want to put it underneath your Mac Studio display or your monitor, like I'm thinking about doing, then this is gonna be one of your best, most straightforward options. Also, the price is right. 29 bucks, can't go wrong. I think another interesting option is actually the Anker 622, which is a magnetic battery. People don't really think of this as a stand first, they think of it as a battery first that also has a kickstand involved. But I actually like the way this looks as a stand on the desk better than I like a lot of the actual MagSafe stands, like from Belkin, for instance, with the shiny metal stem. I just don't really like that look. Plus, you can pick it up and go and have extra juice, So I like those a lot, but I also like the looks, just talking about looks, of the OtterBox 2-in-1, this MagSafe stand that I think is only available from Apple's website. It does charge the Apple Watch, so that would make this one a really good option for your nightstand. If you don't track your sleep at night and you wanna get everything juiced up, phone and watch at the same time, this is great. It doesn't have an AirPods port. So I'm just talking about looks. I like the looks better than one that has an AirPods section on the bottom. And then I like the ability to adjust that tilt angle there. And what I actually really like about this one is that the Apple Watch sits behind the iPhone screen rather than off to the side. All right, so that's it for this video. Lots of great coverage coming. So many cool things to continue to check out. Get subscribed if you're not already. Also, check out the course. Especially check out the newsletter. If you're not subscribed to the newsletter, you have to get in and check it out for yourself. You're gonna feel like the most informed Apple user out there who also has the most time, because you're not spending your time researching what are the best apps, what are the best accessories. It's all just coming to you, arriving for free in your inbox every Friday. Check it all out. I'll catch you guys in the next video.